I woke up before my alarm, the kind of waking that doesn't feel like waking at all, more like being dragged back into your body after it's been somewhere painful all night. The room was still dark, the thin blue light from the street lamps slipping through the torn edge of the curtain and cutting across the ceiling. My first breath caught in my chest, sharp and shallow, and that was when I knew, before I even moved, that yesterday hadn't been a bad dream. My ribs protested as I shifted, a deep, bruised ache spreading like spilled ink beneath my skin. My right hand throbbed in slow, angry pulses, each beat matching my heart, and when I flexed my fingers, a sting shot up my arm and forced a low groan out of my throat. I lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, counting my breaths the way I used to when my son was a baby and wouldn't sleep. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Don't wake him. Don't scare him. Don't let him see. The clock on the nightstand blinked 5:12 a.m., the colon flashing like a warning. I was already late in a way that had nothing to do with time. Late to heal. Late to rest. Late to be the kind of man who didn't limp quietly through his own apartment at dawn. The smell of last night still clung to me, sweat, rain, and the faint metallic tang of blood. I turned my head toward the small mirror leaning against the wall, and didn't like what I saw even in the dim light. A dark shadow bloomed beneath my left eye, not fully formed yet, but getting there. My lip was split, the skin tight and swollen, and there was a faint smear of dried blood at the corner of my mouth. I touched it gently and hissed. I'd learned a long time ago that pain announces itself whether you invite it or not. Carefully, I pushed myself up, bracing my good hand against the mattress. The springs creaked, and I froze, listening. From the next room came the soft, even breathing of my son, the sound that anchored my world. As long as that breathing stayed steady, I could handle anything else. I stood slowly, letting my body find its balance, and for a second the room tilted. I closed my eyes until the dizziness passed. The bathroom light felt too bright, like an accusation. I leaned over the sink and turned on the tap, letting cool water run over my wrists before splashing it on my face. When I looked up again, there was no escaping the truth. I looked like a man who'd lost a fight, and worse, like a man who'd been foolish enough to get into one. The kind of man people judge without knowing the story. The story replayed anyway, uninvited. The way the night air had felt heavy and wet against my skin as I walked home from my second job, my jacket pulled tight, my mind already on whether there was enough milk left for breakfast. The alley shortcut I'd taken 100 times before. The voices, raised, angry, desperate. The moment I should have kept walking. The moment I didn't. I remembered stepping forward, hands up, saying something useless like, "Hey, let's calm down." As if calm was ever an option in a place like that. I remembered the sudden movement, the flash of fear in someone else's eyes, the first blow landing harder than I expected. After that, it blurred into noise and instinct and the stubborn refusal to fall because falling meant not getting back up again. I shook my head, gripping the edge of the sink until my knuckles went white. The past couldn't help me now. What mattered was the morning. Mornings are unforgiving when you're a single parent. They don't care if you're sore or shaken or barely holding yourself together. They demand lunches packed, shoes found, permission slips signed. They demand you show up as if nothing happened. I swallowed a couple of painkillers dry, wincing as they scraped down my throat, and rummaged under the sink for the last of the bandages. The purple bruise on my ribs looked worse in the light, a dark map of pain spreading across my side. I wrapped it carefully, breathing through the sting, then covered it with an old undershirt. Long sleeves would hide my arms. A practiced tilt of the head would hide my eye. I'd learned these tricks years ago, back when hiding was a survival skill. The kettle clicked on in the kitchen, its familiar sound grounding me. I moved slowly, every step measured, and began the quiet routine that defined my life. Coffee for me, cereal bowls lined up, a banana set aside because he always forgot to grab one. The fridge hummed, loyal and tired, just like me. I checked the clock again, 5:34. Not much time, but enough. As if on cue, the small alarm from the bedroom chirped, cheerful and oblivious. I leaned against the counter, listening to it, waiting for the footsteps that always followed. They came, soft at first, then faster, and my son appeared in the doorway, hair sticking up in all directions, eyes half closed. "Morning, Dad," he mumbled. "Morning, buddy," I said, keeping my voice light. "Normal. Everything normal." He squinted at me, his gaze lingering just a fraction longer than usual. Kids notice more than we give them credit for. "Are you okay?" The question landed heavier than any punch. I forced a smile. "Just tired. Long day yesterday." He nodded, accepting it because he trusted me, and that trust hurt worse than my ribs. He climbed onto his chair and reached for his bowl, and I turned back to the coffee so he wouldn't see my face. As he ate, chattering about a spelling test and a science project, I moved around the kitchen, nodding at the right moments, answering when needed. Inside, though, I felt brittle, like one wrong word might crack me open. Being a single dad means you don't get the luxury of falling apart. There's no one else to pick up the pieces if you do. When he went to brush his teeth, I leaned against the counter again, closing my eyes. The exhaustion hit me all at once, a wave so strong it made my knees weak. I thought about calling in sick. The thought lasted all of 3 seconds. Rent didn't care about bruises. Neither did school drop-off or the boss who expected me at my desk by 9. I grabbed my jacket from the back of the chair and slid it on carefully, testing the fit. The pain flared and settled into a dull throb. Manageable. Everything was always manageable until it wasn't. We left the apartment just as the sky began to lighten, the city stretching awake around us. The cold air bit at my face, and I pulled my scarf higher, grateful for the cover. At the bus stop, I stood a little apart, watching reflections in the glass of passing cars, half expecting to see last night staring back at me. My son hummed to himself, swinging his backpack, unaware of the war I was fighting just to stand there. When the bus arrived, crowded and loud, I guided him on, one hand on his shoulder, protective by instinct. The ride was a blur of faces and noise and the ache that refused to fade. At his school, I knelt to hug him goodbye, ignoring the way my side screamed in protest. "Love you," he said. "Love you more," I replied, because that was the rule. I watched him run toward the building, small and fearless, and only then did I let myself sag against the fence for a second, breathing hard. I straightened quickly when someone passed, schooling my face into something neutral. Weakness, like pain, is something the world rarely forgives. The walk to work felt longer than usual. Every step was a reminder of my limits, and every passing stranger felt like a potential witness. By the time I reached the office building, my jaw was clenched so tight it ached. I paused at the entrance, adjusting my scarf, smoothing my hair, putting on the mask I wore better than any suit. No one needed to know what it cost me to get here. No one needed to see the bruises I carried into the morning. All they needed was the version of me that showed up, did the job, and kept going. And so I took a breath, squared my shoulders despite the pain, and stepped inside, carrying the weight of the night with me into a day that had no idea what it had already demanded.